Welcome to the Bias Buzz. I'm Don Irvine. He's Brian McNichol,
Good morning.
and we have a warm morning. I guess it's going to be a warm day in October in D.C. Very unusual.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Is that like Louisiana by any chance?
yeah. It's a Louisiana fall so far. I mean, it's kind of wet and warm, and a few little dips into the 40s and 50s, but mostly good solid outside weather.
All right. Makes you homesick?
A little bit.
All right. Before we get started with all our analysis of the debate, I'm going to inject sports here at the beginning of trending topics. Baseball playoffs. Okay, the Indians have made it to the World Series for the first time since 1997, so that's great for them. They had a great series, and the Blue Jays just didn't hit, and we've got a real fight now between the Cubs and the Dodgers.
Good starting pitching goes a long way this time of year, and I think that's one of the things that has happened to them. It's the same thing with the Dodgers. As long as the Dodgers can roll out good pitching, they have a chance against the Cubs. The Indians were most people's fourth choice out of the four AL teams to make the playoffs, and the top two choices did not win a game, Boston and Texas. So the AL has definitely been different than most people thought it would be.
Plus the Indians threw out this pitcher. He pitched one major league game before yesterday or something like that. That's incredible. So it's a great fall story. This is exactly what we want for baseball. I didn't talk about this last week, but I think but I meant to, which was Colin Kaepernick. And so beyond the protests of Colin Kaepernick, then he got a chance to start last week and try to revive the fortunes of the 49ers, and that didn't go very well.
Didn't go very well. It's bigger than the quarterback situation there, obviously, but it's costing them a lot of money, and the league is starting to have to look at, what should we do the next time this comes up, because I don't really know what they do now, and I don't really know how they end this, because there's no list of demands. If we can have these three things happen, we'll stop doing this, right? That it's society has to solve a huge problem.
Right, and then this leads into this whole NFL ratings drop. As I've been reading the stories, and you probably have too. So the NFL is facing a pretty steep drop off in their ratings so far this year. Lots of reasons have been thrown out by the NFL, including the debates and all the interesting. Though, and I find that to be an awfully specious argument about that. I mean, we have presidential election every 4 years. There has been probably more interest this year, in the debates because of Clinton and Trump. But that's just a fake excuse in my mind. I mean, the product is maybe they have oversaturated. It's not as good. And there has been this whole Colin Kaepernick, all this protest apparently has also led people to say, I'm not that interested. I mean, I like to watch NFL. Spencer likes to watch NFL. I know that we're not watching it as much.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not watching it as much either. And I would not say I think this hurt them. These protests. I don't really I try to ignore anything a movie star says or about politics, because my 11-year-old is just as qualified to speak on it as most of them.
Yeah, we know Hollywood is so
right.
Just they're intellectuals.
But the other thing is football's kind of in a bad place right now. The concussion problems and the guys. A lot of those guys die real young for various reasons, head injuries and so forth. And so, I mean, football, they're working hard to clean it up. But the new game it won't be as gladiator-ish, and it may not catch on. You don't know that the thing that emerges out of this will be the big, capture everybody's attention. And also, all of sports is splintering. Years ago, you had NASL, remember, North American Soccer League. They spent a lot of money on that. They bought great players from all over the world. Okay, but at that point, you had to command a pretty good bit of the audience to survive as a sports league, and they couldn't do it. Now, the MSL commands a smaller percent, but you don't have to reach that level anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, and I mean, basically, we're not going to see any more Jack Tatums. Right, because that is all outlawed.
No, they're done. Lester Hayes, those guys are
right. Done. All those greats from us old guys.
Andre Dirty Waters.
Yeah, you keep bringing those names up. All right, 19 days until the election. Okay, so now we're getting down to nitty-gritty here a little bit. I mean, last week you talked about there's still a lot of time. Now we've had another week or so pass by. I guess maybe when we get down to the 7 to 10 day mark may be the real key here. So we had a debate last night, the third and final presidential debate. Lots of anticipation. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's like we were talking before. as you said, I don't think a knockout blow was delivered, but I think some important body blows were delivered. She could not dispute the open borders quote, right? She had nothing for that. She changed the subject. That was pretty clear, right? That she just dodged that whole thing. She's on record for abortions till the last fingernail is out, right? She is exposed on gun control. There was the strongest debate. If I'm her, I make him split all those babies, right? Gun show loophole, online loophole. What do you really think about all this stuff? Because he's squished on it earlier. He seems confused over like each little battle in the gun control war, right? But she didn't. Last night he just got to say, "I'm totally for the Second Amendment. I'm totally for all in," and they didn't take that down at all. I thought that was very strong, very beneficial for him. If you hadn't watched any of those previous debates, you get the message that he will do what if you're a NRA or pro 2A person, he'll do what you want him to do.
Right, and as I was following the comments on social media last night while I was tweeting about the whole thing too, is that what I was seeing from my circle of friends was just what they were harping on the strong pro 2A position that he was taking versus what Hillary had said, and talking about the Constitution with the Supreme Court justices and things like that. And Hillary, on this Heller case, everybody's like, we didn't know that Dick Heller was a toddler.
Right. Yeah, the toddler brigade.
Yeah, what was all that about? So,
gunning us down.
Yeah, yeah, a bunch of little kids with machine guns or something like that. I don't know. It was just crazy. So yeah, you're right about this. She was really, really weak on this. Talk about setting it up and having a position here on Second Amendment, on abortion, on the Supreme Court. I think it became very clear where those two candidates stood last night. We didn't get that fudging or Trump has this tendency to talk in these big, maybe flowery terms or dance around the edges because he doesn't necessarily know a lot about the specific issue.
Right.
Hillary's a wonk, and so she knows this.
She's much better at detail.
She is much better at detail, and Trump is not. But I think he had her dead to rights on all of those things. But my only concern last night, when they had some of those discussions, you mentioned the open borders thing, which she did a terrible job at, was that I think, to an extent, he may have opened the door and let her, bid on the thing about Putin. We didn't, you don't really want to go down that rabbit hole if you're Trump, and he has to go back and repeat all these things. This is a strength probably a little bit more for the Democrats because they keep harping like, it's the Russians, they're interfering with this election. How do you feel about that? I think Trump is better off when he doesn't have to deal with that.
Well, I think he's right to say you don't know because they don't know. The other thing is, though, it's like he's standing there over her. It's like getting ready to just duke her on Russia, but he just won't do it.
Yeah.
But it's great. You sold them a third of our uranium. Okay, you talking about in bed? You gave them stuff that can be used for weapons. We're talking nicey nice. You're giving them ammo, literally.
Right. So what do you, as we talk about this, what do you think about Chris Wallace? He seems to have been widely praised by everybody for his performance last night. I think he did do a pretty good job in asking questions. I think he held a fairly tight rein on both candidates so they didn't get out of control. I think those are some of the things that have been the problem with the past debates is that things kind of get out of control and off and tangents, and Wallace seemed to have really tried very, very hard to keep that in that vein so that he can continue to go along the subjects he want to talk about.
I'm for letting them get out of control. I'm for stepping back and letting the candidates talk. But what he did was good because he got a lot of questions asked, and he got it, and they were asked in such a way, because a lot of times you get these, and there's a long preamble to the question, and then it's some, and then, what are you going to do about the minority party in Malta, and it's like, and it's supposed to be emblematic of some larger thing, but really it's, if you got to know your business about the minority party in Malta, right? But this was not like that. This was get the answers out that guys sitting around their TVs at home wanted to know, right? And so he did a good job with that. There were some cutoffs where I thought I would have liked to have known more of what the candidate was getting ready to say. In both instances, I think he blunted Hillary's chances to make some attacks too. So, but it was refreshing to see the hard questions get asked both ways, and somebody who was like up on how to prosecute against her, right?
Yeah.
Like Martha Raddatz, she doesn't even know the bad things to ask Hillary, right?
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, I think Wallace is he really knows what he's talking about here. I think he really carefully prepared for this, and he didn't necessarily let either candidate get away with some of their answers, coming back to them and saying, well, but you really need to kind of answer the question. I mean, when they dance around, try to get them to do that within the confines and limitations of the fact that there's a limited number of minutes they can allot to this whole thing.
He has credibility with both sides that none of the other people who were involved in any of the debates this year had, right? I mean, he is, son of a liberal icon, works for a conservative network, reputation of that conservative network of being the least conservative person there.
Right. Yeah, so and that's the thing too. But even my friends on Facebook, I would cringe sometimes. I'm like, they're talking about, but he's just he's a fox and all this stuff. I was like, this guy actually is very fair. I mean, he's been very straight down the middle, so he's probably going to be the least biased guy you're going to see out there, and throw away the moniker of who he works for. Really, in the end,
it's weird. Fox. Because Megyn Kelly's not a Trump fan, obviously, and so forth. Fox is actually the media entity that's in the middle right now. Everybody's far right, this and that and the other. CNN is off the map left. The major newspapers are off the map left. The big networks are off the map left. But Fox has kind of been pulled into the middle. It's kind of the middle where you go for the middle news now.
Yeah, I mean, Fox looks like the real sane voice of the whole thing.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, and I think even some liberals probably have to admit that Fox is probably doing the best job in trying to give you some even-handed coverage.
Right, because they have an axe to grind with Trump.
Yeah.
They're not going to give Trump, easy treatment. I mean, Hannity does, obviously. But the rest of them are pretty tough on him because, for whatever reasons, they have whatever little grudges they have.
Okay, now let me ask you this. So I noticed, when looking at the reports of the debate and who won and where we're seeing, everything I've seen pretty much says, from the media standpoint at least, is that Hillary won, by a fairly large margin. There's probably a few pro-Trump things out there. I don't feel that way. I think it was a much more even type of thing. I'd give it an advantage to Trump on the debate.
And all the poll the voters things, he won overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
And all the focus groups, he won.
Yeah. But one of the things that they harped on as they're trying to push out as the major message, the thing that hurt him, he was winning this debate until, he was asked that question about would he accept the election results.
Right. He gave the only answer he could give. If he says yes, he's capitulating. How can you say yes on the very day the Democrats are firing people because they've been caught on videotape talking about doing illegal things to throw an election, hiring mentally unstable people to go to Trump rallies and start fights on purpose, busing in people from out of state to vote in elections, fixing voter rolls, talking about using violence as a political tool. Their campaign is exposed for doing all that. That night he's asked, will you just take whatever happens, okay? Do you know what happened, the night in 2000 when George W. Bush beat Al Gore, right? Bill Clinton called Al Gore, and he said, congratulations on winning the popular vote. Do not accept the results of this election. Do not do it. And it wasn't until December 12th when the Supreme Court weighed in, and then another 4 or 5 days later, that Gore finally folded.
Right. So that's the thing. I mean, I think you've got a good point there in terms of that. What we're seeing from the media, our great friends in the media, is just this. This is terrible. This is terrible for democracy. All this kind of stuff. They want to make this big issue out of this because I think that they looked at Trump and they thought, dang, he performed a heck of a lot better than we thought we were going to do. What are we going to get him on?
Right.
And this is pretty much all they can really get him on is just this one thing. And I don't really think they have much of a leg to stand on in this case. You're mentioning this thing. We'll jump to this real quickly, too, this whole Project Veritas and their videos. Now, I'm going to say at the beginning, James O'Keefe has done some incredible work over the years. I tried to take everything that he does with a little bit of skepticism at first, a little grain of salt, just to make sure that we were properly vetting it, because anytime videos are edited, they can always be edited to fit your what your point of view, your frame of view is. But the fact that a couple guys are out of jobs and
tells you
that there's something going on here, and where the Democrats, that's a telltale signal that there is a problem. And I haven't really heard a big outcry of saying this is all trumped up and faked and everything like that. I mean, I've heard some calls about maybe the editing of this, but guys losing their jobs, there's definitely a rap there.
When they're firing people, they're telling you the video is right. Okay, this guy, Kramer, 47 times visited with Obama in the White House, 378 visits with Obama. To the White House, 47 of them to visit the president himself. They know this to the highest levels. This has been coordinated in the Oval Office. Okay, so they can't deny it. They said it on tape. There it is. And if you're firing those guys, what about Kramer makes him safe, right? All the stuff was true of these other guys, but Kramer, no. No, that's not right. He's in it as deep as they are.
Right, and it goes to what Trump has been saying about a rigged election. I mean, now I interviewed Hans Bukowski of the Heritage Foundation on Friday. We talked about vote fraud,
good people,
and he's great. I did tell him that my feeling about Trump and his comments on the rigged election, because he has used that whole phrase over and over and over again. He used that in the primary, is that's kind of to give him just a little bit of leverage in case he loses. He can always point to that as a possible reason for him losing, more than that the case is actually out there. But with this video, in talking with Hans and talking about the number of cases, I mean, you have the thing in Harrisonburg, Virginia, where they registered dead people. There's no national way to check on this. I mean, that only came up because somebody knew the person, one of the dead people, and knew that family and all this stuff. I mean, if not, those would have just gone right through. That's not saying that the dead person would have voted, but it gives the opportunity for somebody to vote in that person's stead. That would have been a felony, but you have to get caught.
Right.
And that's the thing. I mean, the Democrats, to me, they rely on the fact that you're not going to get caught.
Right.
You've got 50 states with 50 different sets of rules. There's no cross,
matching. You have 130 jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to have 130, multiple cops watching this, right? It's like that movie Casino, the watchers and the pit bosses and the guys who watch the pit bosses and the guys who watch them and all that, because there are people at the bottom of these things and at the top of these things who see a way to success by fixing the election.
Yeah, and I think that gives credence to why we need the voter ID. I mean, that's a very simple thing to have. You and I have to have that to fly on a plane, to do most business. We want to open up a bank account. You want to get welfare benefits.
There's no excuse for that.
You have to have that. I mean, I still remember taking my mother, my then probably 95-year-old mother, to the doctor, to a brand new doctor, and we were asked for a photo ID for her. Well, she's never driven in her life. She's never had a government-issued photo ID. She has a Social Security card and everything like that. But we're like, heck, she's like 95 years old. We don't have this.
What kind of game do you think we're running?
Yeah,
We're finding a 95-year-old woman to con you out of medical.
Yeah, what am I trying to do here with a 95-year-old woman? Give me a break. Now they let us go ahead and see the doctor, and they never complain. But it's everywhere. It's pervasive. So this whole thing that this is something that pushes down and disenfranchises people. It's just, to me, it's just such a crock.
So in Kansas. Kansas has one of the toughest laws on this in the books. Okay, but they also have a thing that says if you can't afford it or you can't get there, we'll help you get your photo ID. Okay, so they had it in. 1 year goes by. 1.9 million people voted in the various elections that took place in Kansas that year. 37 people showed up at the polls and could not produce a photo ID. 37. So 19 of them, it's like, oh, it's at home. Go home, come back, vote. No problem. Of the other 18, only 7 of them couldn't get. So 7 out of 1.9 million people to get all this protection. And it's like, get an ID. It's not that hard.
Well, I think, and I may have the figure wrong, but I think that what Hans said on Friday was that, in terms of the states, do give this thing to you for free. They'll help you get this, and I can't remember if it was in Indiana or whatever. When they picked a state or Georgia, they had this rule in effect, and they found that it was like less than 0.5% of the people actually even bothered to apply for this.
Right.
So, and the voter turnout in these states with voter ID is still very, very high.
Right. It doesn't hurt turnout. It's
that's
academically proven.
Right.
It's it is nothing but a way to keep fraudulent votes in the system. There also, I read yesterday, in the last presidential election, there were 10 million votes cast by people who are not legal to vote. 10 million. That's a lot of votes.
Yeah, and in a close race, I mean, for the popular vote for the presidency, that's not going to sway things that much because it comes down to electoral. But I mean, this whole thing about voter integrity and having this go on is that there are going to be a lot of close races down ballot, in particular, with the House and the Senate, I think, in a lot of states. And the knowledge that people who are voting actually had an ID and have been vetted in that sense is a lot more comforting. You can feel a lot more confident about the voting being good and honest, rather than saying, well, I don't know. You're going to see the different swings as they go through recounts. It can get to be a very, very messy situation overall. Let's move on to just generally, basically, WikiLeaks and the effect of WikiLeaks. So we keep seeing virtually a daily dump of Podesta emails, which have been very enlightening.
Yeah, they have.
And everything like that. And one of those, things that came out was with Donna Brazile. This came out this past week, that she had apparently received a question for a CNN town hall question, and that question was read verbatim by Roland Martin, who was for TV One, the partner of CNN. Megyn Kelly did a great job with Donna Brazile last night, just really kind of held her feet to the fire, both on the Project Veritas video as well as this. Donna Brazile was very indignant, I think, last night about this whole thing.
She got crushed.
And I want
that was ugly.
Yeah, I want to just say, pull up this one thing. In terms of this, one of the things she said in her retort, as a Christian woman, I understand persecution. Your information is false. Podesta's emails were stolen. You're so interested in talking about stolen material. You're like a thief that wants to bring into the night the things that you found in the gutter. I mean, that's her. That's the way she's defending this.
Their defense is becoming, but look what you did to get those emails.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what they said is true. You said these things. You said open borders. She is guilty. She said, I get the question sometimes. She got a question and gave it to him. And she kept calling Megyn Kelly. Hey, look, Kelly.
Exactly. I know. I was watching this and it's like, hey, Kelly, hey, Kelly. She finally, right near the end, she actually mentioned, she finally said Megan.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all of a sudden, you've been saying Kelly like 5 or 6 times. It sounded like O'Reilly.
Rattled.
Sounded like O'Reilly when they was always, McCallum, Kelly, you would always do that kind of stuff.
So talking about media bias in this, though. So the front of the Post today is Trump refuses to concede, right? The style section is James O'Keefe's can't believe anything in his videos. It's like, that's the talking points of the Hillary campaign on the front page of the Post. So now when people say, oh, you posted some story from Breitbart, it's like, I don't believe Breitbart. It's like, why is Breitbart less believable than the Post? Okay, the Breitbart, the guy who runs it is working for Trump, right? And the guy who runs the Post is working for Hillary. So to me, that makes them equal.
Right. And, and that's the thing. I mean, your point too, there has been, no denial about the authenticity of anything that has been coming out of the WikiLeaks. They've taken that kind of Donna Brazile defense of, how did you get it? The Russians hacked it. It's been stolen. It wasn't legal. Well, look, if the shoe had been on the other foot, they wouldn't have mattered to them.
They wouldn't care about.
They wouldn't care. But it's them. Now the thing is that if you're Donald Trump, you're like, why isn't this hurting her more?
That's what I was going to say. The problem with it is, okay, you have had an enormous amount. WikiLeaks, the FBI has released some more stuff. The Project Veritas. You've had like 4 big things this week, right? And there's so much information that each by itself is pretty darn critical, pretty bad against her. You know, he managed to use a couple. I'm talking about the Brazil thing, and last night. But there's so much that it can't be digested. It's just sort of, she is a total crook, which I think most of the people who could be swayed by that are already swayed, right? So it's sort of to the point of diminishing returns. It might have helped to do, if you were really trying to make her lose by doing this, it might have helped to start to trickle it out a little earlier. Because and now it's like a big miasma of corruption, but it's not, no single thing in there is, itself a silver bullet.
All right, I was going to ask you this earlier too. It's like, in terms of the debate, the importance of that. Do you think that it made much of a difference, or will make much of a difference for Trump and his momentum, his polling numbers with 19 days left?
The debate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it did. I think that the things we were talking about earlier, the abortion, the 2A, the like basic meat and potatoes, immigration, all that, he got to state clearly what he does, what he wants to do in a way that he hasn't in these other debates, because the questions were gotcha, stump ya, make her look good questions. And last night it was just tell us what you intend to do. And I think that all the people who can be swayed, right, you got a clear view of what he's trying to do. And I think that there are, so who could jump now? Evan McMullin voters, people who are, Republicans, never Trump types, they probably heard enough last night, or some of them probably heard enough last night to get off the fence.
All right, one more thing before we finish off here. I just have to mention Amy Schumer, everybody's favorite comedian, right? So she has 200 fans walk out in Tampa the other day when she brought up Trump and just kind of fired away at him. So then she fires back about this, is that she told this New York audience, after the show, I want you to know that I will go straight to a rehab facility that will teach me how to make all people happy, both the rich, entitled white people who are going to vote for him and the very poor people who have been tricked into it. And Tampa, I'm so sorry. I should have said that Trump was an orange, sexually assaulting, fake college starting monster. Shouldn't have said that. I will never again say that he is an orange, sexually assaulting, fake college starting monster ever again.
Just, self-beclowning, as all these guys are. What are you going to do, right?
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think she just gets hoisted by her own petard in a sense. Just, we'll leave that be. We'll let her just lie in her own words. All right, 2-minute warning. Go.
2-minute warning. We had the last suit against the guy who made the abortion videos was thrown out the other day. People saying that it was false. It's another situation. He does basically what James O'Keefe does undercover videos, and the last one that alleged that he had done anything false or illegal was thrown out by a judge, which we always knew. The case against him we always knew to be trumped up. I mean, that's one of those things, is like, you got to look at like how justice is being used in this country as a political weapon right now, and the people responsible need to be held to account.
That's good. And I just want to say that we're gradually approaching Halloween, and I should have brought my props, and I'll do that next week. But anybody who follows me on social media knows that I am a pumpkin spice fiend. I don't drink coffee, so I always miss the PSL from Starbucks. But I have this unhealthy addiction, I think my family would say, to find everything pumpkin. So if you find anything else out there that's pumpkin I haven't found yet, like Pop-Tarts, and I've already done the Cheerios, the biscuits, we've got Trader Joe's waffle mix. I got Trader Joe's ice cream. I don't know how much more is left to go, but I will keep searching far and wide until I meet my pumpkin quota. And that's it. So anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Go ahead.
We're doing it. Today's
here's
the
our
day.
paper toss. We're finally remembered after all this
3,
time. Go with a paper
2,
toss.
1.
You get to see that. I'm sure my editor will love that. Anyway, so join us again next week. We'll be at our regular time and day on Wednesday, and we'll see you then for another edition of the Bias Buzz.
Bullseye.